Here we are again, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown on one of my favorite chassis kits from Tamiya. It is the TA04 kit. It's something that they discontinued a while ago. This car over here, I wanted to try out what a pan car body was like, both because of the impressive aero that it has. It's a really good flow on the body. And just to see, you know, I wanted to see because they were a lot wider of a car. As you can kind of tell, that Mercedes body is pretty significantly wider than the Nissan. This Nissan body is an R34 Nissan Skyline, the GTR series. It's a carbon fiber limited edition series body. Somebody, when they were storing it, didn't have this body properly cared for, so something put a big bulge in it. So it went from being a collector's item to essentially something that I could use. Back here, I went ahead and bought a Yokomo wing set. It's kind of a vintage set, and its other partner wing, the single stack wing, is on my drift car. This aluminum adjustable mount here is a Tamiya part, so you can actually get this thing to dig into the air a little bit quicker. As far as tires go on this chassis, I've got contact 30mm tires front and rear. And then tires for this one, I went and picked up some John's BSR 32mm in the front and 45mm in the back. I wanted to get the nastiest tires that I could get. And of course I had to paint the rims because they only come in black. And I thought that the Repsol livery would go pretty well with the Mercedes. The body here had to come from Hong Kong. I kind of comp cut it like a 917 Porsche, because on the pan car stuff you're going to have to adjust the wheelbase to fit. The wheelbase on this touring car is shorter than the original pan car stuff. The chassis came as a kit from Hong Kong as well. It was an old vintage kit that I've been watching on eBay for a long time, and it's a TA04R chassis kit. And you can see how those tires stack up next to anything else. So there's a pretty good look at it. I believe this kit is the TA04S. And when I bought it, obviously off of eBay, it had that body on it, which I believe they called the Opel V8 Coupe. Pretty rare, and I didn't know it was rare. So I drove it and roughed it up a little bit, and now he sits down there because I don't want to hurt it anymore. And of course now I've got a special edition body on it again. So, but this one does not come with carbon fiber shock towers, just comes with plastic. But I went ahead and bought the Tamiya ones for it, front and rear. This one, I swapped these over to a TA05 steering set and then build a custom link with heim joints and some M3 rod in the middle to get it spaced properly. On this one, because it was a kit, I did the same thing with the steering. I got the black edition aluminum TA05 steering, and then it had the plastic link in the kit. Comes with regular plastic uprights, and on these it doesn't have a triangulated link up onto the upper deck. I think they call it a torque rod or something like that. Also, this kit comes with TRF dampers, and of course I went ahead and triangulated the whole front suspension off of heim joints and rod ends, and then skipped putting the shock tower on the front and just went ahead and bolted the suspension right to it. You can see the clearances there, pretty tight. I bought the aluminum front body mounts so that it would sit directly underneath this portion of the body so that something could push down, and it would push down on something, you know, pretty soft. These are actually the bushings that they send you in a TA02 kit that you replace with ball bearings. So you kind of fit down there in nice and held the bumper right at the right height so that the body kind of sits correctly. The clearances on this thing, as far as the tires and wheels go, and then as far as all of the other stuff between the body and everything, are extremely tight. The knuckles and uprights, these uprights I believe are for a TRF 415 or a TA07. They're from Jazz Hobby. Tamiya will sometimes use some various different parts, but if you notice how I had to triangulate off of the very top, like basically kingpin bolt here, and really the torque rod is supposed to go to the top, this one here, and then this rod is supposed to go down to one on the side down here like that. Okay, so there are some differences. You can see I've made steering links for this one. As far as getting back to the drivetrain, this is a monster. It's a Tekin 411G. If you look it up, it's a 300 amp rated motor control, and if you bridge this little torque control wire here, I believe down here to the red wire, it goes to 1,000 amp burst rating. So pretty hairy. I've got it geared really well with the 04 module gearing. Pretty tall. This is one of the fastest cars that I have. I believe that's a 50-tooth pinion and something, let me see if you can see it. Let's see, 116 teeth on the spur gear. Now if you notice, the spur gear adapter's a little bit different, and it looks almost like there's a lower shock ball in there holding it centered, and if you flip it over and roll it just a little bit, you'll see that that is an XV01 gear adapter. I did that because the plastic one that I come with broke. I hit it with too much power. I went back down to a 25 turn GT tuned Tamiya motor, and that works a lot better for gearing it up real high and fast. But that adapter actually worked like that, flipping it over and putting a shock ball and nut on there. I do have a cross gear adapter coming from Hong Kong, and then the aluminum front steering posts coming as well. So this car is really fun to drive. It is so smooth and crisp. It's got a nice little Spectrum servo. It's not a very expensive rig. I think I paid 130 bucks for the whole thing originally, and then got all these parts arranged for maybe a couple $100 more. That down there is a Sportworks 26 megahertz AM radio. Nothing really that fancy. I think the fanciest part is this, and that it's just a monster. I've had this motor control in a 9-pound buggy, like a 4-wheel drive off-roader, and it just burnt the motors out of it, 2 or 3 of them. So that motor control is pretty hairy. Back over here to the R edition, you can obviously see some of the changes. Over here there's a plastic tub, plastic top deck. On the original R chassis, they give you the plastic tub. So this carbon fiber deck is either from a pro kit that somebody sold me, or it was one of the aftermarket upgrades. You can see in there, peeking out of there, is a brand new LRP 17 turn brushed motor. I like the brushed motors in these road cars because they end up being pretty darn quick. Rear and front stabilizer bars. I went ahead and tried to get as many of the links put on here because I like the way they adjust real clean. And then of course this wing I got from RC World. It's an aluminum wing and it's an adjustable one. That's a Yeah Racing wing mount, and of course M3 rod and another set of links. Then when you get all that installed and tightened in there, you can see it just screws right into the shock mount. So when I push down on the wing, it pushes down on the suspension. So I believe if there's any aerodynamic effect from that wing, any downforce at all, and I don't have it cranked up all the way, but it's probably going to transfer right down into the suspension. Servo is an aluminum cased Evo P1. Got that out of Taiwan. Got the Tamiya high torque servo saver, and I think this is Express RC or something like that. An aluminum. I got this from RC Express. They're on eBay too. Really great store. Aluminum servo saver or servo mounts. If you notice, the sharp-eyed viewer will see that there's a Team Lozi battery cage on there. I just found that in a high roller somebody gave me that was broken in half. Figured I'd use it here because I didn't want to go with a full carbon fiber extra plate and battery carrier. So this one just happened to bolt right in. The R kit does come with the carbon fiber upper deck. Excuse me. And it does not come with carbon fiber shock towers, so I have to still buy one of those to get that going on. Got a nice little ball bearing belt tensioner. I went with the Tamiya radio because I kind of like the vintage aspects of this car. I did try to get another one of these Tekin motor controls, but I'm not sure what happened. I think I fried it, let the blue smoke out. So what I did was take a Castle Sidewinder. I think it's a Series 3, but it's the short course truck edition. And if you bundle up these wires, all three of these wires end up tying in to the ground wire of the motor. I got some pretty heavy duty stuff. It's 12 gauge, but you can see it's got its own capacitors on the motor because LRP makes some really solid stuff. I love LRP gear. And then soldered the motor connections on there, and then the positive just goes back into the battery harness. So when you do that, and you have to program it, read your Castle driver's ed guide, and you'll be able to program that thing for high power brushed mode. And it doesn't have any reverse, and when they say high power, you hear this thing wind up and the car just takes off. The gearing that I have now, I believe that is a 30-tooth pinion gear from Tuning House, but it could be any number of manufacturers. I'm kind of a gear hound. I like them. The R kit does come with a carbon fiber plate, as well as the aluminum backplate adapter, and it's a really nice one. So obviously you just run with that. The R kit also comes complete with ball bearings and a pretty good set of them. I've got a little cooling fan on there, and it seems to work pretty good, even though this thing does get pretty hot with that kind of power. If I'm not mistaken, I've got the, well, of course I got it flipped over. I believe this is the 120 tooth gear. It's kind of cool because Tamiya will give you, oh look, 128 teeth. Cool. So gearing I tried to get as steep as I could because of the 17 turn motor. When I first put it together, I had the 90 tooth gear that it comes with and a 51 tooth pinion, and the car drove by me at about 70 miles an hour, and lift-off oversteer took it about 50 yards. So rather than do that, I just went ahead and geared it way back down. It's still super fast, probably too fast. The knuckles are the same ones for the F350 high lift, I guess. So you can still get those. And then back here, I had a set of aluminum knuckles, but they were too thin, so I had to go back to the plastic. And then I'm still looking at getting the arms, the aluminum arms for it. These aluminum mounts don't come with the R kit either. They're a plastic mount, as you can see from this guy. See, a little bit different. Same gear cases and whatnot, but definitely a plastic suspension mount. So I found those mounts in Japan, and the man was kind enough to sell them to me and airship them over here. So I've got the front and rear aluminum mounts and the lower carbon fiber plate, which I think with all the stuff that I'm doing, maybe if I switch this tower to carbon fiber, you're looking at a pro kit. So Tamiya will occasionally make an R kit into a pro kit and add in some extra special features. And I think on this one, the lower deck carbon fiber was one of them, as well as the lower suspension mounts. Essentially, it turns it into about the same thing as a TRF car. So as fast as some cars are, these chassis are the two fastest that I have. I know a lot of people probably can get a lot faster stuff, but as far as road racing cars, I just love them. I can't get enough of them. So there it is. That's your TA04 series of race cars. Your S and your R, maybe even with a little bit of a slight sprinkling of Pro throughout. And at some point, I'll try and get out and get onto a piece of concrete big enough to let this thing really turn loose, because this R kit is extremely fast. Thanks for watching.